Well, good evening, Three Circle Church. It's so good to have all of you join us online for our Equip Conference. This is going to be an incredible evening where we are able to get better at what God has called us to do as a church. I know so many of you joining us serve here at Three Circle. You're so committed to the vision of what God is doing here, and that is what Equip is all about. It's about us getting better and more effective at what we do. Personally, as individuals, in our homes, in our businesses, where we work, and here collectively at Three Circle Church. You know, as a church, we're celebrating so much right now. It has just been 20 years. So just last weekend, we celebrated 20 years of Three Circle Church being in existence. It's absolutely amazing. And as we celebrate those 20 years, we realize all that God has done here wouldn't have happened without so many of you who have been a part of the fabric of what has happened here at this church. And what we would call that is the linchpin, right, Blake?
Yeah, absolutely. And so for those of you guys that felt that we had a typo on the Equip t-shirt, that's actually a linchpin.
That's right.
And so our definition of a linchpin is something that holds things together. And it would be impossible for Three Circle Church, the fabric, the DNA, the culture of Three Circle Church to be held together without linchpins just like you. And there's 4 ingredients that make a linchpin. One is an individual that attends a worship gathering regularly, whether it's in person or online, or they serve. And they're in a small group. And then lastly, they give generously. So those 4 things is what makes up a linchpin. And we have collected a ton of linchpins over the years here at Three Circle Church, right?
Absolutely, Blake. There's no way that all that has happened here could have happened without so many people over these 20 years. And what we can't wait for is the next 20. Over the next 5 to 6 months, we're going to be talking about what's next. We're going to be talking about 20 more and all that God is going to do. And to kind of kick all that off, we're doing Equip, where we get ready for what God has next for us. And to do that, we brought in a special guest. We've been really excited about this for a while. We have Jenny Catron with us tonight. She is a renowned leader. She's been a part of some amazing ministries at the executive leadership level. She's an author, a leadership coach, travels the world helping leaders get better, in particular in churches. So you're in for a treat tonight. You're going to want to buckle up, get your pen and your paper out to take some notes, because what Jenny's going to share is not just going to help you serve better at Three Circle. It's going to help you in your home, in your business, in every aspect of life. So it's going to be a great night. Thank you for joining us. And what we want to do now is we want to start with worship. We're going to worship Jesus, which is who this is all about anyway. So let's start by praying together, and then we're going to worship Him. Let's do that now. Lord, thank you so much for this time we have together called Equip. Lord, you told us in the New Testament that as believers we need to be equipped. We should be equipping one another to do good works, which we were created for in Christ Jesus. So our prayer is tonight that you would use this evening, that you would use our friend Jenny as she teaches us, that you would be blessed by the worship that we're going to bring to you now, and that at the end of this evening that we would all be better equipped for 20 more great years at Three Circle Church. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
We want to encourage y'all to sing along with us tonight as we sing a new song together. Y'all join in. I searched the world, but it couldn't fill me. Man's empty praise and treasures of faith are never enough. Then you came along and you put me back together, and every desire is now satisfied here in your love. Come on, let's tell Him. Oh, there's nothing better than you. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. Oh,
and I'm not afraid to show you 'cause the God of the mountain is the God of the valley, and there's not a place your mercy and grace won't find me again. Oh, there's nothing better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. You turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. Oh, there's nothing that's better than you. There's nothing that's better than you, Lord. There's nothing, nothing is better than you. Oh, there's nothing that's better than you. There's nothing better than you, Lord. There's nothing, no, nothing is better than you. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can.
Come on, let's give it praise.
All right. What is up,
Welcome,
Three
everyone.
Circle? Good evening. We are off to an incredible start to our Equip conference. We hope that you're enjoying yourself so far. But before we dive in really deep, we're going to have a little fun. So
That's
loosen
right.
up a little bit.
Gotta have some fun.
We're going to have some fun, and we're going to do a giveaway. So here's what we need you to do. We need you to log into the chat room. Whatever platform you're watching on, go ahead and log in. Pick your favorite screen name from like back in the day. Britt, what was your screen name back in the day?
it was Dizzy Britt without the eyes.
Ooh, Dizzy Britt, I like
Yep,
it. So
that's
choose a
right.
fun one. Get logged in there. And you know, we love a good competition, right?
Definitely.
You love a good competition. But we love some rules to the competition because that's how we determine a winner.
That's right. And we have a great prize.
That's right.
We have a great prize.
What's our
Amazon
prize?
gift card. All right. Everyone loves to shop, right? On Amazon right
I
now.
do.
It's great. It's at your door in 2 days.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's a good prize. So you're going to want to
good.
be sure to participate. But first, we're going to let you know the rules so you know how to play. Rule number 1. This question that we're going to ask you, it's going to require like multiple answers, like 1, 2, and 3, maybe.
Yeah,
You know,
maybe.
theoretically.
Maybe.
So you're going to have to put all your answers in one comment. You can't just like answer one, like click enter, and then answer number 2, click
Nope.
enter. It needs to be all in
That's
one
too
comment.
confusing.
All in one comment. Number 2 is you can be logged into Facebook or on our website. Either one will be fine, whatever platform you choose.
Now, if you're watching on YouTube, hello, we're so glad you're here, but please log into Facebook or our website chat room so that you can be a part of this competition.
That's right. And rule number 3. The first person to answer correctly wins the prize. And our chat hosts, they're like the referee. So don't argue with the referee. They're going to be the judge, and they're actually going to let you know if you're the winner. So you need to have like a valid email address, and they're going to message you a little bit later, and they're going to let you know that you're the winner, and they're going to send you the prize.
That's right. So you guys want to know what the question is?
Yes.
All right. You have an Amazon gift card on the line for this, okay? The question is, think back to the beginning of this amazing year, 2020. We want you to list 3 of the sermon series that we have done at Three Circle Church in 2020. I'll say it again. Remember, say the 3 answers in one comment. Name 3 of the sermon series we have done this year at 3 Circle in 2020.
That's right. I bet that chat room is blowing up.
That's right.
now.
I bet they are.
Log your answers in there and be sure you get them in, all of them in there, one comment.
That's right. And so stay tuned until the very end as we dismiss you to find out in your chat room who won the lucky prize.
That's right, guys. We have an incredible night in store for you. We have with us tonight Jenny Catron. It's going to be some amazing content. We're excited, and we hope that you are too. So stay tuned for Jenny Catron.
Well, hey, 3 Circle Church, it is such a privilege to be with you guys, and I wish we were in person, but we're all learning how to do this virtual thing really well, aren't we? I have had the privilege today of spending some time with your pastor, Chris, and the rest of the team here at 3 Circle, and I just want to encourage you guys that this is a remarkable church doing just extraordinary work, and each one of you guys are a part of that. You're helping influence the community here in remarkable ways, but also churches across the country. And I just want you to hear from me, somebody who works with churches literally across the country, and I hear often about how what you guys are doing at 3 Circle Church is influencing others and helping other church leaders just continue to serve their communities better, help lead people to Jesus better, because of the work that y'all are doing. So thank you for what you do. Thanks for your faithfulness in that. And tonight, I want to just challenge you with a thought, because I believe something really important about you. I believe that you were made to influence the world in a way that no one else can. Now think about this for a minute, right? You were made to influence the world in a way that no one else can. And I suspect some of you are like, really? Because I'm just trying to survive, like figuring out life right now. But I believe that each one of us was uniquely designed by God to have influence in the lives of the people around us in unique and important ways. And you saw in the intro how much leadership is a passion of mine, and we're here at the Equip Leadership Conference, and the subject of leadership is a core passion of mine. I've been passionate about leadership probably since as long as I can remember, and that there's this significance and there's this importance that happens when people lead well and when we're led well. And when we talk about leadership, we're talking first about this idea of influence, that each one of us has a sphere of influence. We have the opportunity to influence others. And by definition, influence means the power to change or affect someone. And so when I tell you that I believe that you were made to influence the world in a way that no one else can, I'm telling you that I believe that you have the power to change or affect the lives of the people that are in your world day in and day out. So whatever your role or responsibility looks like, whether you are a corporate CEO or you are at home managing all the kids, whatever your role looks like, you have significant influence because you have the power to change or affect the lives of the people in your circle day in and day out. That family, friends, co-workers, neighbors, the folks that you are a part of, your friends you have here at 3 Circle Church, you are influencing them in a unique way. And so what I want to impress upon you tonight is that you have this power to change or affect others, and how you steward that is so important. In fact, I would say that it's sacred work. I'm guessing that all of you have been influenced, hopefully, by a great leader at some point in your story so far. Somebody who led by example with great character, integrity, somebody who believed in you, somebody who saw your potential and drew that out of you, somebody who gave you opportunities to grow and to develop, right? Like that idea of, hey, a leader who you just really aspire to, somebody you really admire. And then regrettably, I suspect you've also been influenced by a poor leader. Someone who wielded their influence for their own power and advancement, Maybe they were a bit demotivating or a bit discouraged, right? We've all had kind of these stories in our lives of people who didn't steward their influence so wisely. And what I know is that we need great leaders. We need people like you who understand the significance of their influence and are purposeful to steward that influence well and to lead well. And so, to be completely honest, just to kind of give you a little backstory on why this passion became so key for me, was that my early leadership was marked by really a misunderstanding of what it means to lead well. Like, what does great leadership look like? Following a path I'd seen from others, I kind of expeditiously climbed the corporate ladder. I'm an achiever by nature, so I wanted to do all the things and accomplish all the things. I've always wanted to make a mark and make a difference. I bet some of you can relate to that. And so I read all the leadership books and I barked orders and I bulldozed my way to success, only to learn that I wasn't earning influence, I was losing influence. I was becoming aware that I needed a different set of skills to lead well. I needed a different paradigm or a different perspective for what great leadership looks like. And I was having difficulty kind of keeping up with everything that was going on, just the complexity and the increased pace of my world. And so I was making leadership decisions that were really more about my survival than they were about the welfare of my team or the organization that I was leading, right? It was becoming all about me instead of about others. And I had the tools, I had the skills, because I had done all the homework. I had the tools and the skills to grow things really rapidly, but I didn't have the emotional and the intellectual and the spiritual health to sustain it. And what I realized in that moment was that the hardest person for me to lead is me. And the hardest person for you to lead is you. And so as we talk about leadership tonight, I want to focus on self-leadership. What does it look like to lead yourself well, to steward that influence well, so that that trajectory of your impact on the lives of the people that you get to serve with, the people that you get to lead, the people that you get to influence, that trajectory is one of great legacy, right? See, a number of years ago, I read a quote from Dr. Pamela Butler. She's a clinical psychologist, and she said this. She said, "There's a person with whom you spend more time than any other, a person who has more influence over you and more ability to interfere with or to support your growth than anyone else. This ever-present companion is your own self." And as I read that quote, I was like, oh, right? Because her words awakened in me the importance of this idea of self-leadership, that I need to lead me well, that there's no one I spend more time with than me. There's no one who has more influence over me than me. There's no one who can interfere with or support my growth than me. And so this realization was both incredibly empowering, right? Like I have control in this, and yet also quite terrifying because it all comes back to me. Right? So I want to encourage you in the same way to say, hey, you have, there's no one you spend more time with than you. There's no one who has more influence over you than you. You've got to lead you well. We take ourselves into every situation, and one of the most challenging and most liberating things I've learned in my leadership journey is that the one thing I have control of in every situation I find myself in is I have control of me. I have control of how I react. I have control of how I respond. And so that is the one place where I can lead myself well and trust the rest of the outcomes. And let's be honest, in a COVID world, this is really hard, isn't it? To lead ourselves well, to take responsibility when so many other things are out of control. But I want to give you 4 things tonight, 4 ways that I think we can lead ourselves well, so that that influence, that trajectory of our influence can have the kind of impact that we all want to have. And so my leadership philosophy is anchored in the Great Commandment. I'm sure you're familiar with in Mark chapter 12, verse 30, Jesus gives us the Great Commandment where he says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and with all your strength. And then he says, and love your neighbor as yourself. And so as I've considered leadership and what does great leadership look like, how do I lead myself well, how do I make sure that I'm leading others well, I always come back to this great commandment where Jesus says, love God and love others, and then love them with all of who you are, heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so as we talk about self-leadership tonight, I'm going to try to frame it for you around those 4 things. What does it mean to lead ourselves with all of who we are, with this idea of heart, soul, mind, and strength, so that we not only lead ourselves well, but we're leading others around us well. And so we're going to unpack it in these 4 areas of leadership, starting with leading from the heart. So let me ask you a question. When you begin a project or make a decision, do you think task or people first? And most of us are going to default to one or the other, probably very naturally. And if you're like me, I'm task-focused. I'm a get-it-done person. I already told you I was a bit of an overachiever. And so give me the task, give me the project, and I'm ready to go. I like to get things done. I want to define the plan. I want to see it to completion. That is just how I am naturally wired. Seeing that project to completion just gives me a great deal of fulfillment. That is just how I think. But early in my leadership journey, that task-driven nature became a roadblock for my development. I was pushing people so hard that within a matter of weeks, they're frustrated, I'm frustrated, things aren't going well. I actually went to my boss at one point and was like, hey, things aren't working out, and I was kind of pointing the fingers at everybody else around me. And he said, hey, Jen, if you want to work with people, you're going to have to learn how to love them, to lead them. And by the way, this was in a corporate context, so it wasn't in a church setting, it was in a corporate context, and I had a boss who needed to tell me that I needed to love people, to lead them, because I was so driven and so task-focused that I wasn't noticing the people in front of me. And some of you are very relationally wired. You think people first, and you're like, yes, of course, this seems obvious. But for me, it was a blind spot that had the potential to sabotage my leadership influence. And so I needed to recognize this important fact that I needed to learn what it looked like to lead from heart. And I lacked that relational intelligence as a leader, and I needed to engage it more to recognize, how do I lead from heart? How do I see people first? And so I want to give you just a couple of thoughts on this one of saying, hey, how do we lead from heart? How do we understand ourselves in order to lead others well? Because ultimately, leading from heart is first about understanding ourselves so that we understand how we show up to the people around us. And as the kind of that importance of self-leadership began to grow in me, and I was kind of reflecting on these thoughts from my boss, I realized, you know what, I've got to lead myself well to lead others better. That kind of became the mantra that was constantly ringing in my ears, that, hey, if I'm going to understand how to influence and lead others well, I need to understand how I show up, because I was clueless to the fact that that task-driven nature was overpowering all of my influence. So here's a couple ways that we can be more self-aware and lead from heart. And it really begins with leading with an understanding of who you are. How has God wired you? How has God gifted you? I often ask people when I'm working with them, who are you? And just a simple little phrase, who are you? And usually I get some curious looks because they think it's kind of obvious, and they give me their name, their job title, a role that they play, maybe husband, wife, father, daughter. Like, they give me some role or some responsibility that they have, and then they discover that that's not actually what I'm asking. And I'm asking them who they are. Who are they? How has God gifted them? How has God wired them? What are some of the uniquenesses of their personality and their experiences and their gifts that have shaped them so specifically? And oftentimes, it becomes a really challenging question for people to answer. See, greater self-awareness begins with understanding that unique wiring that you have. How has God uniquely wired you? What is that collection of gifts and talents, experiences, the interests, the passions, all the things that have made you you? Because understanding those nuances gives you greater insight into what motivates you and how you interact with others. So part of leading ourselves well, this self-leadership piece, is understanding first, who are we and how has God created me? I live in northern Wisconsin, and so we get a lot of snow, a little bit different climate than from here. And we get a lot of snow, and one of the things that always just fascinates me every winter is how every snowflake is different. Scientifically, they tell us that every snowflake has a different pattern, and I'm thinking, if God is that intentional to create the snowflakes uniquely, how much more purposeful is he in creating you and I uniquely? And how much more important is it for us to be in tune to how has God wired us, how has he gifted us, what has he put inside of us, and how can we use that to steward our influence well. So some things, some questions or some continuums to kind of get you thinking along these lines are just these simple things like, are you tasked? Do you think tasks are people first? Are you introverted or are you extroverted? Like knowing that and how you're wired is so key. Are you independent or interdependent? Like do you like to be with people or do you like to kind of work on your own? And as you evaluate these different parts of your personality, you consider how these unique things impact how others experience you. That's the opportunity for you, is to just to do this exploration for yourself and understand how that influences the people that you get to influence or you get to lead. And another thing that I would say in learning to lead from our heart and lead yourself well from your heart is paying attention to how your experiences have shaped you. We're all a combination of nature and nurture. So paying attention to things like, did you grow up in a strict household that didn't leave a lot of room for mistakes, so you're kind of a perfectionist because of that experience? Did you grow up in an environment that was more relaxed and so a little more easygoing? What were the expectations of maybe your first job or your first boss, and what was that like for you? Were you in a culture that maybe had a lot of strict routine, and has that influenced how you show up? See, your experiences, especially in some of your formative years, have likely created unconscious expectations for yourself and others. So the more that we understand just these nuances of how we think and how we're wired, the better we're able to lead ourselves well. So we want to lead from heart, and then we also want to lead from soul, which is the spiritual dimension of our leadership. And in order to lead from soul, you need to know what you find most important in life and why. It's all about our values. If you were to come to my house, you'd quickly see what I value. You'd see lots of books everywhere because I love learning and I love reading. You'd see pictures of my family because that's a key part of what's important to me. You'd see running shoes and sports equipment because we love to be outside and in the outdoors doing exercise. And so you would quickly see things that matter to my family. If I went to your house, I'd probably see things that reflect what is valuable and what's important to you. So understanding your values is key to learning what drives you, right? We need to understand our why. And oftentimes, we do this well in the organizations that we're a part of. So whether you're at a company, whether you're serving here at the church, we often do a great job of understanding the values and our purpose as a part of the organizations. But we need to do this work for ourselves as well, and understanding what's my why, what are my values, what's important to me. Because as we begin to understand our values, we learn what drives us. And then you can begin to develop the attributes that are essential to your outside influence in things like your character, your integrity, your morality, your emotional health. Like the better we understand our values, the better we understand how they show up in our everyday lives and in our influence. So considering what are your values and what is their source? Why do they matter to you? Taking time to reflect on just patterns in things that are important in your life. Considering values in every sector of your life. So relationally, physically, spiritually, professionally, what principles do you stand on in each of these areas of your life? Because they're going to give you clues into what's important to you. And then considering your character and your integrity. What is true and what do you want to be true? When we're leading from our soul, when we're applying this dimension to leading ourselves well, we're paying attention to our character and our integrity and how it shows up in every environment we're a part of. So these are some questions that just start to give you insight into what do you value, what's important, because that's going to speak to how you lead yourself well from soul. And honestly, you have values, whether you've intentionally stated them or not. They're there. Whether you have been paying a close attention to them, whether you've taken the time to evaluate them, they're there, and they're influencing your behavior. So reflecting on what you value and why will help you clarify the values that you want to be true of who you are, and then set you on a course to lead from those values. That's how we lead from our souls. The third one is leading from mind. And honestly, I think this is the one that we naturally default to a little bit better. I think maybe culturally, this is just the one we're conditioned to engage, is to think, to plan, to make goals and set objectives, right? Like we just are kind of conditioned to do that. And it's pretty amazing what our mind is capable of. Neuroscientists tell us that barring severe trauma, our minds and our brains can constantly be learning and growing. And that's the key thing here when we're talking about self-leadership, the importance of recognizing that we need to keep a posture of learning and growth. And so it's within our power to grow, to learn, to improve. And that's how we want to lead ourselves well when it comes to this dimension of mind. Recently, we spent a weekend at the lake with my extended family. And amidst the busyness of building forts and catching minnows, which is, I don't have children of my own, so I love to spoil the nieces and nephews and spend all kinds of time with them. And my nephew made this kind of just remark. He said he could learn because he didn't have a fixed mindset. And I thought, this is coming from an 8-year-old. And I was like, a fixed mindset? What 8-year-old understands fixed mindsets? And so he says to me, this is a concept that he was learning in school. And he said, I want to continue to learn. I can continue to learn because I don't have a fixed mindset. And so as I reflected on it, I was like, I hope he carries that into the rest of his life, because that is true for all of us, that we need to constantly be learning and growing. Philippians 1:6 tells us to be perfected until the day of Christ Jesus, that there's this continual work that is being done in us, that we need to keep growing, learning, and becoming more Christ-like. But in this context, that ability to say, you know what, we have the capability to grow, and that infuses us with hope and possibility, that there's always an opportunity for us to keep learning and to keep growing. So it begs the question, do you have a growth mindset or do you have a fixed mindset? Like, how do you think about the future? How do you think about what's ahead? When presented with a challenge, are you inclined to think, I can't do that, I don't know how? Or is your response, let me figure it out? See, just those little things are subtle ways that we can lead ourselves well so that we can help influence others better. For many of the leaders that I coach, they often express frustration that no one else is investing in them or no one else is paying attention to their development, that they can't find a mentor, or that the organization that they lead doesn't provide resources for training. And while a lot of times that is true and it's disappointing if we don't have those opportunities, my response to them always is, hey, this is your responsibility. Seize it. Take the moment. Seize the moment. No one is responsible ultimately for your development but you. And so we want to, again, seize the opportunity to keep learning, to keep growing. So here are a few things that I do to keep learning, growing, and cultivating that growth mindset. It's just being committed to reading articles, books, resources, listening to podcasts. You've probably heard the adage that leaders are readers. And it seems to be true. In fact, there's a recent study that said CEOs read an average of 60 books a year. And I don't know about you, but most CEOs are pretty busy. So if they're finding time to read 60 books a year, it seems that it's pretty important that they're constantly learning and growing. So if you want to grow, we've got to develop the habit of reading. And if that's audiobooks, if that's physical books, if that's digital, whatever mechanism or method it works well for you, but being committed to constantly figuring out, how can I keep learning? How can I keep growing? Another way to develop a growth mindset is to seek out new ideas. Inspiration can come from lots of places, so remaining open to new ideas and remaining curious and surrounding yourself with people who come from different experiences or have different perspective, just having those conversations that help us think, continue to help us grow. And then finally, finding environments that'll force you to blossom and learn new things about yourself. Recently, I started playing piano again. And I had played piano as a kid and just didn't keep up with it through the years. And about a year or two ago, I said to my husband, I was like, I think I want to start learning to play piano again. And so we got a piano at the house, and I am having the best time, like kind of rediscovering a new skill and learning something new. And so those simple things of just being committed to growth and to learning, seeking out new ideas, and then stretching ourselves to try new things, just create a growth mindset that'll allow you to adapt and change and stay competitive in the world that you're a part of. And then the fourth dimension is leading from strength. And in this context, so it's, we're told love God and love others with your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And in this context, especially when we're talking about it related to leadership, I think of strength as vision, right? Because Scripture tells us that without vision, people perish, that vision provides strength. And you need a vision for you. You need to understand, what are you aiming for? What is that vision that is on the horizon for what is happening in your life and in your story? So every year, I begin by taking a day of reflecting and planning, and I get away and I take my planner and all my ideas, and I clear my calendar, and I choose a location where I don't normally work so that I can just try to think differently and try to anticipate and pray over the year ahead and say, hey, God, what do you have for me this year? What's the vision for this year ahead of me? And I found that just taking that day of reflecting and planning, setting goals for myself personally, professionally, spiritually, physically, this discipline has given me valuable insight into my priorities, my deepest desires, and it sets the course for my year. And again, one of the things I think that we miss sometimes is the importance of doing this for our personal growth and development. Oftentimes we'll set visions even for our families, for the organizations we're a part of, but having a sense of vision for what is that purpose, what's that calling, that that vision for what's ahead of you personally is so key to leading yourself well. So here are a couple things to consider in that regard. First, it's to develop discipline, right? Which doesn't sound super exciting, does it? We don't love the word, but discipline has the power to get you from stating your personal or professional goals to actually accomplishing them, right? We have to put in the work. In fact, author and Professor Cal Newport would call it deep work. And he says that the ability to perform deep work is becoming increasingly rare at exactly the same time it's becoming increasingly valuable in our economy. As a consequence, a few who cultivate this skill and then make it the core of their working life will thrive. This idea that we need to be able to focus and to develop the discipline to kind of double down on the things that are most important to us. A second way we lead from vision is by having a vision for your life that integrates all of your life. See, sometimes we kind of silo this, don't we? Right? So my personal life is over here, my work life is over here, my church life is over here, and I've kind of got them all segregated, and I show up to whichever one I need to be a part of. But having a vision that integrates all of your life, personal, professional, family, spiritual, you need a vision for your whole life. How do you show up in all of those environments consistently and congruently? And then the fourth thing I would say there, number 3, is know your boundaries, because your values will determine your priorities. So use your values as guiding principles to help you determine what to say yes to and what to say no to. This is a big one, because oftentimes we don't know what our boundaries are, and so we get caught up saying yes to all kinds of things that actually don't keep us aligned with our sense of vision and our sense of purpose. And then fourth, we need to stay focused on the things that only we can do. What are the things that only you can do based upon that evaluation you did in heart, right? Of your gifts, your talents, your experiences, the things that have shaped you. And then with a greater understanding of those things, you know how and when to play your part and where to focus your energy and your time. One of the quotes that I keep on the wall of my office is from Catherine of Siena. It says, "Be who God meant you to be, and you will set the world on fire." And I think a lot of times for us, we get so busy and so caught up in all the things and all the expectations that we miss the opportunity to just check in and say, okay, God, how have you wired me? How have you gifted me? What have you equipped me with? And how can I use that influence for good? How can I use that influence to not only lead myself well, but to lead the people around me well? Because again, as I told you, I believe that you were made to influence the world in a way that no one else can. I believe that you were uniquely created, uniquely designed, that God has a specific purpose, calling, and intention for your life, but you have to do the work to understand that. You have to do the self-leadership of understanding how are you wired, what has God called you to, how do you lead from heart, soul, mind, and strength in a way that honors God and serves others well. And that's the opportunity in front of us, that you get to influence the world in a way that no one else can. But it starts with you leading yourself well. So let me pray for you to wrap us up tonight. God, I thank you so much for this church and for everybody who is a part of it, everybody who's watching this leadership conference tonight. God, I pray that that we would see how you've wired us, how you've gifted us, what you've equipped us with. God, what is the Galatians tells us to make a careful exploration of who we are and the work we've been given. And so, God, we ask that you would help us to understand what that looks like, that we would see you in us. One of my favorite things to ponder is how you are the master artist that created each one of us uniquely. And the more we know the artist, the better we understand the work. And so, God, would we seek you as we pursue self-leadership, as we seek to understand us better, we will understand ourselves as we understand you. And so, God, I pray again that for all of us, that we would just have a greater understanding of how you have equipped us, how you've gifted us, and that we would be able to use that influence for your good and for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
And what a powerful time it has been tonight. Thank you so much, Jenny, for joining us. She did an incredible job unpacking how we can lead ourselves well during this time.
Yeah, and so, man, I got just so many things throughout the day because we got to spend some time. So I've got a notebook full of ways in which I can lead myself better personally. So we've got a few things. So before you turn it off, do not throw that laptop lid down. Don't turn off your iPad or your phone right now. Just listen to us for just a little bit, okay? And so we got a few things that we want to share with you. The first thing is this upcoming Sunday, we want to invite anyone that will to come out and join us to celebrate all those that are going public with their faith through baptism down at Gulf Shores. And so if you want all the information about that, you can go to threecirclechurch.com/events. You can show up at the lodge and see everything that God is doing in and through our people.
Yes, this is going to be an amazing time. And also this Sunday, we launch small group registration for our fall term of groups. So our fall term actually begins on September 13th, but for the next 2 weeks, you will be able to sign up if you are not yet in a group. This term, we are doing signups for online groups as well as in person, so that there is an option for everyone. You can go to threecirclechurch.com/groups for more information.
Yeah, so that's one of those things that makes a person a linchpin. So if you want to become a linchpin, join a small group. And then last but definitely not least, here at Three Circle Church, we've been working on what we call core values. And maybe you're a business owner and you have core values inside of your organization. And so we've been working on some to kind of govern our staff, but also our volunteer leaders. And so we're going to roll them out. There's 6 of them tonight. So we're going to briefly roll them out to you tonight. But this is not going to be the last time that you hear about them. You're going to hear about them from us constantly through those that lead major ministry streams. You might see them all over the walls at some point because they're important when they're applied, because it creates the culture that we're trying to create here along the Gulf Coast. So what's just one of the values?
So our first value that we wanted to roll out to you tonight is gospel centricity, which means that we want to put everything that we do through the lens of the gospel. The next value that we wanted to roll out to you this evening is bottom-up leadership, which simply means that we have an others-first mentality.
And the third value that we have inside of Three Circle Church with our staff and volunteers is above-the-line thinking. We think it's so important that we give people the benefit of the doubt, and we just don't assume the worst. Inside of this day and age in which we live, that's kind of the knee-jerk reaction, is that we have this assumption of the worst. And so we want to adopt this value of above-the-line thinking. And then the fourth one is last 10%. People say about 90% of what they think, but they hold back that last 10%. And we want to try to create a culture here where we give the last 10%, not like hatefully, but in truth and in love.
Yes, and then our next value is called for over from, which means that we want more for you than we want from you. And then finally, our last value that we wanted to roll out to you this evening is that here at Three Circle, we want to have a culture of excellence, meaning that in everything that we do it to the best of our ability, and we do it best with the resources that we have.
So those 6 values that you just heard, they're not just sayings that we just are going to put on a poster or put in a handout, but they're actually a reality. Like, we want to see those things applied to a deeper level. And the reason for that is because we know that if we can actually live out those values, that if everyone in the room that calls themselves a volunteer leader and our staff lives out all of those values, that we're going to be able to reach more people for Jesus locally, regionally, and globally.
Yes, so we have a lot of exciting things going on. So excited to roll those out to you this evening. And finally, before you go, we want to say a quick congratulations to those winners of our giveaway tonight. Those names should be popping up now in the chat room that you are in, so congratulations. And finally, this Sunday, we will be having the finale of our Rhythm series. It's going to be an awesome day. We hope that you will not miss it. You can join us online or in person at all of our campuses. We hope to see you there. Have a great night.